All right. Four factors presented by Vincerix. Trying something new today. We'll be on YouTube. It's not a live stream. We're taping at about 11 a.m. here Eastern time. Hunter, great to have you with me again. The Huskies, they've done it. They've won the greatest upset in the history of college football. They've beaten the unbeatable, undefeated Oregon Ducks. How does it feel?
Feels amazing. 10-point underdogs going to Vegas, take care of business. I really can't believe we're only 4.5-point underdogs at Texas. So the books feel like Oregon truly is like the best team in the country. I saw that hypothetical line would be 6.5-point underdogs to Michigan or Alabama. So the computers love the Ducks, which should help them out against the Liberty Flames in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if we had, let's say we played Oregon again this weekend. I assume we'd be like 16-point underdogs, 17-point underdogs. They're just going to keep upping it every time we play them until it reaches some sort of ridiculous number.
Yep. True underdog story, I guess, but we'll take it. We've now beat them on their turf, our turf, and neutral turf in the last 2 years. So feels good. Feels good to be a dog.
Certainly does. And we obviously now have a month to prepare and break things down for the Texas game. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that between now and then. And I've got to say, that is one of the best parts, I think, about the four-team system. Yeah, there's a million things that have gone wrong with the four-team system, but if you actually get in this month of time to just sit back, enjoy, kind of marinate in your success without having the stress of, I mean, if the game was this weekend, the season could be over almost instantly. This month to kind of drink in the glory of the season, and then also have the potential upside of a national championship at the end of the month. It's a pretty nice setup if you can find yourself in the four teams that are in it.
Yeah, it is. You can sit back, relax, enjoy all the bowl games. Feels like we got more and more bowl games every year. We got some 5 and 7 teams getting in this year. Nothing better than betting on a bowl game that kicks off at like 10 a.m. on a work day. Just that Bahamas Bowl, I think, is one of the first ones. A lot to look forward to between now and the 14 playoff.
Also, always exciting to see who the new sponsors of the bowl games are. The Bahamas Bowl, I feel like they've got somebody different sponsoring it every year. But yeah, we've got bowl season upon us. Like I said, the Huskies have done it. We'll be talking about that plenty in the weeks to come. I've got my tickets secured for the Sugar Bowl, so I'll have boots on the ground there to support the Huskies. I was also at the Alamo Bowl. You were there as well last year at the Alamo Bowl when we beat Texas the first time. And as we've just seen, the Huskies in rematch is a formidable foe. And I think part of that, in all seriousness, is because I've been thinking, like, how is it possible that Kalen DeBoer is 4-0 as an underdog? How does the market keep getting the spread so wrong when UW plays against Oregon? And I really think it is because the betting markets have not adapted to the fact that Kalen DeBoer may be one of the top 5, maybe top 3 coaches in the country. And obviously, yeah, you just look at the rosters, you look at the stats, whatever it may be. It's easy to see Washington as an underdog in these games. But with Kalen DeBoer on the sideline, it's just worth a big number of points in every game. And especially you give him a rematch, a team that he's seen on tape, ran some plays against, knows what works, what didn't. Just feels like such an advantage on the sideline that maybe that's why the spreads haven't quite adapted yet.
Yeah, and I mean the best teams play their best ball in the biggest moments, and that's what I feel is really the mark of this Washington team. Like this Washington team gets better as the game goes on. I know they started fast versus Oregon, but you watch in the third and fourth quarter, this team really picks it up, and it just feels like when you get to those 4th and 2s, whether it's on offense or defense, like Washington just always seem to have the edge. And you can look at it and you can call it luck, but at the end of the day, Washington continues to come up big in the biggest moments. Washington continues to come up with huge play calls. You look at that 3rd and goal call to go up 10 with 2 minutes left. You bring in your tight end 4, make him eligible on the right side, have him fake a block, catch a pass. Like Washington trusts all their guys and all their pieces, and it always takes a team effort. And I feel like that's what Kalen DeBoer is all about. Like there are the stars that you trust in those big moments, but everyone needs to contribute, and you just never know what UW's about to hit you with.
Yeah, and I think we also saw, Washington didn't have their full offensive capabilities from basically the second half of the Michigan State game through until this game last week. You get Jalen McMillan back at full speed, and it opens up kind of that quick screen game that then gets the defense moving side to side, which opens up more of those gaps for Dylan Johnson. And I do think as well that Dylan Johnson the Huskies go and get him in the portal, an SEC quality player who comes in at running back, both in the pass blocking, which I thought was a key for Washington in that game. Oregon and even Dan Lanning talked about the variety of different blitz packages that they tried to bring, the different stunts that they tried to set up, and Washington was just there to meet that from a blocking perspective every time. Dylan Johnson, then he rushes again, just a huge game on the ground, and a player that I think now is getting attention because everybody was watching that game and he had a great game, but he's been a key cog to the Washington system for the pretty much since that Michigan State game when the passing game kind of started to drop off a little bit. He's been just fantastic.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. As good as he's been on the ground, he is exceptional in pass protection, and that's what really makes this Husky teams go. We like to have 3 or 4 receivers out wide get into the pattern, so we need to protect with 5 plus a running back if we keep him in the backfield. And he's never antsy to get out into a leak out route. He's always willing to meet pad for pad and pop someone in the hole. And it just gives Penix time. Penix is a great quarterback. When you move him off his spot, he definitely falls off a little bit. So allowing Penix to stay on his spot and make those big time throws, he's just surgical when he gets the time.
Absolutely. And a rematch with our former coach as well, Coach Sark. Looking forward to another chance to play against him. And even Kalen DeBoer said it, and I'll say this as well, like nothing but respect for Sark in the sense that he took over a team that did not win a game. I think I was in like 8th or 9th grade when that happened, and it was terrible. So for him to take over and take Washington back at least on the ascendance, then he obviously goes through some struggles, pop back up at Texas. I will have bad blood for him during the game, but no long-term bad blood with Sark, at least on my side.
Yeah, credit to Sark. Like, he made UW cool to go to again. He really made inways on the recruiting trail, took UW from that winless season and put them back at least getting competitive. So no bad blood with me with Sark, but definitely hope we go out there and beat him on the first.
Indeed. And while that was all happening on Friday night, while the Washington game was going on, of course, we had a couple of marquee college basketball games. The first one being Kansas and UConn. And Houston and Xavier played as well, and then Northwestern and Purdue all on Friday night. And it was really the start for me, and I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch many of these games too closely because I was so caught up in the Husky game, and then the next day I wanted to see what was happening in the other conference championship games to get a sense of who the Huskies might be playing. But Kansas takes down UConn at home. It kind of went according to plan, I guess, as we talked about it. Kansas covers the 2.5. UConn had to miss a 3 there down the stretch, but we said it ahead of time. This is a game Kansas needed to win. UConn, who we'll talk about in a little bit, we'll be seeing tonight at the Jimmy V Classic. They put up a good fight, come up a little bit short, but I think that's kind of what we expected in that game, and I think we can take away that both teams, at least for us, maybe we bumped Kansas up a little bit in our power rankings, but we didn't drop UConn very much because we've seen how difficult it's been for teams to go on the road early in the season. Yeah,
we slide UConn down a spot just to number 2. I mean, that loss doesn't hurt them on the resume. That loss doesn't hurt them come March Madness. And then we move Kansas up a spot, like a bit of a rocky week in Maui, more so on the questions being asked than the actual resume coming out of Maui. So they needed this win. They needed to right the ship. DeJuan Harris played a lot better. Kevin McCullough looks like an NBA wing. Hunter Dickinson's in the conversation for National Player of the Year. And Kansas looks like Kansas again in that win.
And on that front, as I mentioned, where it just seems like teams right now, early in the season, have really, really struggled on the road. I mean, there's just a myriad of road losses this weekend in college basketball, and also during the week. That's kind of, I feel like the Duke game kind of kicked off the string of teams that we've thought highly of, just couldn't get it done on the road. Purdue loses in overtime to Northwestern. Northwestern entered that game number 57 in KenPom. Purdue shoots 5 of 19 from 3, 6 turnovers for Braden Smith. That's a concern that we've talked about. Purdue did bounce back last night nicely against Iowa. And as we've said as well, this Purdue team is going to be judged on what happens in March. And it might be tough for them, in all honesty, to get up for all of these games, knowing that it only means so much when where their eyes are focused. But a great win for Northwestern, and honestly a surprise. I would never have pegged Northwestern to upset Purdue.
Yeah, massive win for Northwestern. The one's going to carry all the way through the season, and come Selection Sunday, definitely could be the difference for them as a bubble team. Yeah, we've seen like it is so difficult to go on the road in college basketball, regardless of your ranking, regardless of what the line is. You getting into that new environment, you get on the road. It's tough to win basketball games. And like you see the Jekyll and Hyde of Purdue on the road and Purdue at home. I mean, Purdue looked like the best team in the country last night. Absolutely walloped Iowa, was just getting up and down the court, couldn't miss, playing great defense. And that just, what they give up 92 points to Northwestern, I think.
Yeah, I think 92. It wasn't overtime to be fair, but yeah, I mean, they were projected to give up 66 in Ken Palm, and they gave up 92 minus 16, so like 76 in regulation. So yeah, definitely struggled a bit on the defensive end there.
Yep.
And I didn't have eyes on it, but you've reported that there was a Fran technical foul last night in the Iowa game.
Yeah, an early technical foul for Fran. He was upset with the refs. He gave him that big frowny face that he likes to give them. Got it like when they were only down 10, like 24-14. So got it out of the way early, but then things just snowballed on them in the very wrong direction.
I would hate to see that for one of our favorite coaches to watch in college basketball, and I remain on the record that he is not a good basketball coach, and we will see how the Iowa season plays out, but it's been middle of the road so far for Iowa. Then on Saturday, I'm queuing up some college football. I'm getting ready to see what's happening with Texas. I see on the bottom of the screen that Wisconsin is up on Marquette in Madison. I flip over and watch the second half of that game. Wisconsin ends up winning it 75-64. Wisconsin's been a team that we've talked about on and off on the pod so far this year. They started the year with a loss to Tennessee at home. They went on the road to Providence and got absolutely smacked at Providence. But since then, things are going well for Greg Gard and company. They beat Virginia with ease on a neutral site, a Virginia team that's looking pretty good. They beat SMU in that tournament as well. And now they beat Marquette. Again, just surprising result, especially when you think about how kind of Wisconsin and Marquette match up. Marquette wanting to get up and down the floor, Wisconsin wanting to slow it down a little bit. That one goes the way of the Badgers. Any takeaways from that? Is it just that this is a rivalry game? Obviously, that's an all Wisconsin battle there between Marquette and Wisconsin. Those can always go either way. Or is there maybe something deeper here?
I think, yeah, just a rivalry game. Teams are always going to get up for those, and those can go either way. We see that time and time again. But also, it's just a good example of how you should schedule in college basketball. You should give yourself those big-time opportunities all throughout the preseason, because when you look at their resume, they have those 2 losses. However, they now have these 3 quality wins, and as we've seen time and time again come Selection Sunday, your big wins matter more than your worst losses. So Wisconsin's trending in the right direction. They're trending in the right direction headed into Big Ten play. They're going to have plenty of opportunities in Big Ten play. I think I saw them as high as like a 4 seed in the latest bracketology. So Greg Gard figuring some things out, moving the pieces around, and they're improving.
Yeah, and like you said, a couple more big games actually this week. We'll talk about them against Michigan State tonight here in a little bit. And then on Saturday, they go and they will be playing at Arizona. So Greg Gard, not afraid to test this bunch early in the season. Big Ten play on the horizon for them. And like you said, on the point of the wins really matter more than the losses, especially against good teams. Marquette still with that win over Illinois and Kansas in their back pocket. They've now lost to Purdue in Maui and on the road at Wisconsin. Those are definitely not catastrophic by any stretch of the imagination. And they host Texas tomorrow, which will be another chance to get a solid win for Shaka Smart. And then there just was a variety of other games of just teams losing on the road. Memphis went and lost at Ole Miss. Chris Beard continues to get off to a great start there at Ole Miss. They are now 7-0 after that win over Memphis. Duke lost again. I think they lost to Georgia Tech. Is that correct? Duke goes down to Arkansas and Georgia Tech on the road in those games. Our Auburn squad, first of all, not sure why Auburn's going and playing at Appalachian State. I respect that they are doing that. I don't think we'll be seeing them doing something like that again. They fall to Appalachian State on the road, 76-69. So hate to see that for our Auburn team. But again, it's a road loss and one that you got to give them credit, I guess, for going and playing that game. But is it a sign? I was thinking about it with all these road losses and teams that on paper, it's a mismatch, and they've just been struggling on the road to start the season. I think to me, we're starting to see, and it was similar to last year, where we just don't have those dominant teams in college basketball anymore. There's a
Yep.
lot more parity, and going on the road in college basketball, especially if you're a highly ranked good team, the crowd's going to be there. They're going to show up. They want to get that upset victory. I think we might be headed on our way to another year where it's really wide open.
Yeah, it just can't speak enough to how the transfer portal has changed things in college basketball. It's allowed these mid-major guys who are excellent to move up a level. And teams are just getting older because of the transfer portal. Like, you're not bringing a lot of freshmen along. You might have them on your roster, but so many teams are bringing in these older guys through the transfer portal. And there's just more parity. Like, there's more high-level players at the Power 5 level with the opportunity to move up through the transfer portal. And then also one thing to think about, I think through COVID, we kind of lost sight a little about just how important home court advantage is in college basketball. Like, home court means everything in college basketball, and these fan bases are rabid. I know they were back last year, but you can just see, like, Mackey Arena last night looks absolutely impossible to go into. Like, I would take Purdue over every team in the country at Mackey, but there's probably 5 to 10 teams I'd take over Purdue on their home courts. So it's just so big in college basketball, and we're really seeing that play out.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about it last week too. This is a betting related podcast. I didn't necessarily take advantage of it. I think I was 3-3 on my bets last week, so a complete push, which honestly I felt good about because I think I misread or forgot almost the impact of the road environments. There was basically a ton of opportunities last week for some big money line winners. If you had taken those home underdogs in those games. And as you mentioned, Mackey, we saw the energy at Allen Fieldhouse was insane. I saw some videos from like people at the game and just crazy crowds there. And then also, not to oversimplify it, but a road football game or a home football game, like at the end of the day, the field's the field. The background doesn't really matter. You're just playing the game. And that's true of a variety of different sports. In basketball, you practice shooting at your home gym. You practice shooting on the same backgrounds, and then you get used to it playing in the same environment over and over again. It is tougher, or it's either easier to shoot at home or tougher to shoot on the road. But that's a piece of the puzzle too. It's not just in a lot of sports, it's just the mental or the noise that affects your playing. In basketball, that's a legitimate piece of the puzzle as well.
Yeah, how often do we see those role players struggle to shoot it on the road and then come home and all of a sudden the shots start falling? Purdue, another great example. They have their student section behind the basket and they go absolutely crazy. And they cause misses on the free throw line. And in a close game, if they can cause a miss or two, that's going to be really impactful.
Yep. And I think, as we said, we adapted our power rankings a little bit. There were some teams. Another team who suffered. This was not an acceptable loss. This was at home. Kentucky loses at home to UNC Wilmington. We were just starting to get really excited about what John Calipari and company had at Kentucky. After the Miami game, we were talking about maybe they're the best team in the SEC. Maybe this is a true Final Four, maybe a national champion contender. And all of those things may still be true, but the Kentucky resume now just not quite as impressive. Their best win is that Miami win, but Miami's dropped to 46 in KenPom, a team that the computer rankings really don't like. They won in overtime against St. Joe's. That could have been a loss as well. And now they've suffered a loss to the 119th team in the country, UNC Wilmington. What do we make of this Kentucky team? Are they in the kind of Villanova boat now, where we just don't know what they're going to bring to the table on any given day, but they have Final Four upside when they play to their potential?
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of those teams where you love them as an underdog and hate them as a favorite. Like, they can play such a wide variety of basketball because they're so young. There's going to be so many ups and downs. Like, they're riding the high off that Miami win. Everyone's giving them their flowers, like we said. But then they come out and they get beat by UNC Wilmington. It just goes to show in college basketball, you got to come out and you got to play hard and you got to play the right way, or you're going to get beat. Like, there's a lot of these mid-major teams that have talent, and it's their national championship. Like, if you're UNC Wilmington and you're going into Kentucky, that's your biggest game of the year. Like, you're going to be playing as hard as you possibly can. If you can get that win, it's going to just do massive things for your confidence headed into conference play. Yeah, Kentucky, extremely disappointing loss coming off that huge win over Miami. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Yep, and that's a great point on the fact that the level. I mean, we see so many of these, like you were talking about earlier. So many of these top tier college basketball programs have guys who just the year before were playing in these leagues with some of these lower level teams. Like there's hardly any good rosters right now that don't feature one, guy from the transfer portal who is playing at a lower mid-major school. So the gap in quality of players isn't that big. And then those players treating the game as their biggest game of the season, they want to prove themselves in these road environments or wherever it may be. And there's just not the margin for error is just not very high in these games. And UNC Wilmington's a good, solid team. Like they're 112th in KenPom. This isn't. You might be able to show up against the 250th team in KenPom and give a half effort and still win. But once you get into those top 150 or so teams on KenPom, you better bring your A game. And we've seen that the team that keeps becoming. We talk about them now every week because it's just fascinating how their season's going. Is Villanova. They lose twice last week. They haven't won since the battle for Atlantis. They lost to Penn before the battle for Atlantis. Then they pick up 4 consecutive wins against Maryland, Texas Tech, UNC, who now I think is a top 10 team in the country, and Memphis. They lose to St. Joe's. They lose to Drexel 57-55. They can't beat any of the Philadelphia teams. What in the world is going on with Villanova? We might just need to make this a recurring segment. What in the world's going on with Villanova? Because I think we're talking about it every episode now.
Yeah, that seat's got to be getting hot for Kyle Neptune. Like everything I'm hearing is that they spent $3 million in the transfer portal. They loaded up on talent. This was supposed to be the team. This is supposed to be a national title contender. And they looked the part. Like they looked the part in Atlantis. They looked the part when they beat UNC. But then they come out and they lose to St. Joe's. They lose to Drexel. They already lost to Penn. It's just inexcusable for a team that has that talent. Like, especially in those games in Philadelphia, like as a Villanova fan and as a booster, you're expected to win every single one of those games. You have way more resources. You have way more talent. So going out and getting those losses is it's flat out embarrassing, to be honest.
And we talked about this after the St. Joe's game last week, that our concern and why, if you had to try to diagnose like why this is happening, because it doesn't really make sense, is they shoot too many 3-pointers and they surrender too many 3-point attempts. And when you look at the Drexel box score, I hadn't even looked at this until right now. You see that story play out in this Drexel game. I mean, they only score 55 points. They shoot 5 of 27 from 3. That's 18.5%. Drexel goes 8 of 16. That's 50%. It doesn't really matter who you play. If you're getting beat that badly on 3-point percentage and then you're firing up an extra 12 versus the opponent and you're not rebounding those misses, it's just a recipe for losing basketball against any team you play. And yeah, like we said, they could play against Purdue tomorrow night. They could play against Kansas. They're going to play Marquette's in Connecticut in league play. And yeah, they could easily win those games. And I think from a betting perspective too, those will be opportunities when they play those good teams, because if they get hot from 3, they can't beat anyone, but they can also lose to anyone, as we've seen. And we talked about, will Kyle Neptune adapt the style of play now that he's seen this is the 3rd time in the first 9 games this has happened? He hasn't done it so far. But for me, as I watch to see if this Villanova team is going to be any different as the season goes on, I remain focused on what do those 3-point numbers look like.
Yeah, and this team just doesn't look like those Jay Wright teams that play inside out, drive in the paint. Like Jay Wright teams are notorious for playing off 2 feet, getting in the paint, making the right pass, making the extra pass. So that's the thing about the threes, is it's not just the quantity of the threes, but it's the quality of the threes. And they're not getting those perfect inside out wide open looks that we're so accustomed to Villanova getting in the Jay Wright era. And yeah, when you're taking 25, 33s a game, it's going to come down to the volatility of those shots. And that's really going to decide the game, especially if you're not offensive rebounding. I think a lot of the best teams, a lot of the best 3-point shooting teams, it's not just the makes, but it's the ability to offensive rebound those misses and get your team an extra possession. Yeah, Villanova's going to have opportunities, but already 3 head-scratching losses.
And to that point, their guards, their kind of point guards are TJ Bamba, the transfer, and Mark Armstrong as well. And neither of those guys are the slashing, beat guys off the dribble, drive and kick, get open threes type of players. Now, at times in Atlantis, they did, and that's when it looked really good. But since then, things have gone wrong. And then also, you start to add the pressure too. Like, you lose to St. Joe's, and oh shoot, now we're in a tight game with Drexel. Like all those things add up, and so we'll see. We'll talk about it in just a second. They're going to Kansas State tonight. It'll be interesting to look at what that line is and see if there's a bounce back opportunity. But the highlights of tonight's slate, honestly, some fantastic games. I'm super excited. We're going to have boots on the ground tonight at Madison Square Garden for the Jimmy V Classic. I went to the Jimmy V Classic last year. Super cool event. Obviously, it's always good basketball, but also just everything that goes around it from the Jimmy V Foundation side of things. It's just a cool event to attend. So really looking forward to that tonight. The first game on the slate tonight, FAU making a return to Madison Square Garden after defeating Tennessee and Kansas State to go to the Final Four here last year. Dusty May says, let's get the boys. Let's go back up there and do it again. They will be taking on Illinois tonight at 6:30 on ESPN. An Illinois team that they're low and lost, I do believe. Yeah, they've only lost to Marquette so far this year. They lost that game at home. We talked about teams struggling to win on the road. They actually go to Rutgers on Saturday and beat Rutgers 76-58. So I don't know if I assume they're just staying up here in the area, which is another advantage potentially tonight that they've had some time here in the New York City area. But they smack Rutgers, who's number 62 in KenPom, 76-58. And then they get this FAU team who lost that game early in the year to Bryant, but has rolled since then with 5 straight comfortable victories, including one over that Liberty team who was undefeated going into that game. They smashed Liberty 83-58. A compelling matchup for me here, Hunter, between these two teams, and we get a line of Florida Atlantic -2, Illinois +2.5, and an over-under of 145.5 to 146.5. First of all, how excited are you to have some boots on the ground tonight? And then any thoughts on this Illinois FAU showdown?
Yeah, I'm stoked. This will be my first time in MSG. Something that I just grew up as a kid, watching MSG, watching Mello on Christmas Day, watching a lot of big time basketball in the NCAA tournament. So super excited to get in MSG and see what it's all about. And then you brought it up, but the Jimmy V Classic is for such a great cause, and Jimmy V is such an icon for the sport that it's a really exciting event. And the field's absolutely loaded this year. They did a great job. And I love that they bring FAU to this thing. Like, you could have brought 4 Blue Bloods, but you go ahead and bring FAU, who returns all that talent, and I think that's awesome for mid-major basketball. I think it's awesome for college basketball.
Yeah, and just getting into the statistical side of things, as we like to do here. This is my first time looking at the stats for any of these matchups today. So we're going to real-time breakdown of how we're thinking about this one. The FAU offense has been fantastic this year. Dusty May, great offensive coach. They're 7th right now in KenPom in adjusted efficiency, 13 in field goal percentage. But guess who the number 1 defense in the country right now in effective field goal percentage? That is Illinois. They're 26th tallest team in the country. The interior for Illinois is fantastic. They lead the country in 2-point defense, and they do a fantastic job of running teams off the 3-point line. Illinois only surrendering the 10th most 3-pointers in the country this year, and only the 2nd most assists. So this Illinois defense is very, very strong. The one thing they don't do is force turnovers, but that's because to do those other aspects of the defensive side, can't necessarily be in the passing lanes trying to get those steals if you want to make teams play in isolation. And then the other side of the ball, a little bit less impressive numbers for both teams, kind of middle of the road offensively for Illinois and middle of the road defensively for FAU. Illinois does rebound the ball nicely, 33rd on the offensive glass, but it really seems to me that this showdown is going to be between the high-flying FAU offense and this really strong Illinois defense.
Yeah, and I trust Illinois here because defense travels. And you mentioned that Illinois doesn't turn a lot of teams over, but that's because they don't gamble on defense. They run you off the 3-point line, and then they just have that stellar interior defense that just contest every shot and make it hard for you. They put you in isolation situations. Now, Florida Atlantic has guys that can score in isolation situations, but they're best when they're moving the ball around and they're finding that extra pass, getting to that open shot of that rim run. A super compelling matchup, Illinois' defense versus FAU's offense. If I had a side, I think it's Illinois +2.5 tonight. I'll take the points, and I'll take the defense.
Yeah, and I'll join you on that for exactly some of those points that you said. And we've seen this early in the year in a variety of different games that at this time of the season, especially in a big game, you go on the road like this, or both teams go and are playing in this marquee environment. The ability for Illinois to kind of counteract some of the key things that FAU probably get them out of sorts a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. And then on the looking a little bit more where the Illinois offense and the FAU defense matchup, FAU also does a great job of making you play in isolation. They have their 7th in fewest assists per basket. But Illinois likes to play a little bit more on the isolation side of things. They're 290th in assists. So Illinois won't be as thrown off, I feel like, with the style of defense that'll play a little bit more into their hands. Terrence Shannon for Illinois has been fantastic so far this year for them. Ken Palm has him as a top 200 individual offensive player. He scored over 20 points in pretty much all of their games. He's shooting the three-pointer really well, 46% from three for him. So I love Dusty. I love the Owls. We had a great moment together when they came up here for the Sweet 16, and I watched them beat Kansas State. But yeah, the pick for me will also be Illinois plus 2.5 in this one. And we will also then be able to cheer for our colleague Steve, who will be there, the Illinois graduate, and I'd hate to go against him as well.
Yeah, also, with Steve coming to the game, I couldn't go against the Illini.
The next game, I mean, two just truly fantastic matchups. That's 14 versus 16 in Ken Palm between FAU and Illinois. The next one for UConn versus North Carolina, two teams who's number 12 in Ken Palm. We have them both in the top 10 in our power rankings. The line of this one was surprising to me when I saw it earlier. This one I did see North Carolina plus 6, UConn minus 5.5, and over under of 150.5 to 152.5. We look at this game, the Connecticut offense remains rock solid. They didn't score as many points at Kansas, but there's plenty of reasons for that. They're 68th in 3-point attempts so far this year. 44th in assists per basket. They're 3rd in the country in 2-point percentage. They don't turn it over. They're 8th in offensive rebounding percentage. Now, to be fair, UNC does rebound the ball nicely on the defensive side with Baycott, 51st on the defensive glass. And then on the other side of the ball, the UNC offense, 13th in getting to the free throw line. So they're doing a nice job getting to the line. 34th in turnover percentage, taking care of the ball. But the UConn defense, 6th in defensive rebounding. 10th in 2-point defense, 18th in block percentage. They don't surrender a lot of threes, only 35th in 3-point attempts. These are two teams that can score a lot of points. We saw what happened UNC against that strong Tennessee defense. They put up 60-something points in the first half. North Carolina, to me, I love the roster. I've said this before. The RJ Davis, Harrison Income, Baycott, Cormac Ryan, Elliott Cadeau lineup to me is one of the top 5 to 10 5-man rotations or 5-man lineups in the country. But then you've got this UConn team playing effectively a home game at MSG. How do you see this one? Kind of maybe what are the areas of focus that you'll be watching for tonight in person?
I think a big matchup is going to be Klingon versus Baycott on the interior. And I think a big piece of this game is going to be the whistle. We've seen on neutral courts, referees let teams play a little bit more than in those home environments. But I think a huge piece of this game is going to be Armando Baycott, and if he can stay on the floor. Because if he picks up his first foul before the first media and he has to come out, and then he's playing with one, he needs to be a little less aggressive. And then if he picks up 2, do you sit him for the first half and bring him back in the second? Because if he goes out, they're going to have some real issues dealing with the size of Connecticut in the interior and then the way that Connecticut drives the ball. Few teams take the ball hard to the rim than UConn. UConn makes a point of throwing the ball in and then kicking it back out for their 3-point attempts. So I think a huge piece will be the whistle. And I think a huge piece will be if Armando Baycott can stay out of foul trouble, because when Armando Baycott's playing well, he's a National Player of the Year candidate, but sometimes he has a tendency to get a little foul happy, and that could really cost them tonight.
Yeah, and I think this is more of I'm going to be there in person. I want to watch this take place, and I've seen it happen many a time. We've talked about it before. MSG, an over gym. There's something about MSG. They get going up and down the court, the crowd, the energy. The ball goes in the basket at MSG. I've seen it firsthand many, many times. We bet the over a couple of weeks ago when UConn played here for the first time this year against Texas. That came home for us. North Carolina is going to want to get down the court before this UConn defense can get set. I think they're going to be, focused on from the offensive side of the ball. Let's get the ball, let's push it. And then on the other side of the floor, just the efficiency of the UConn offense and the home crowd behind them, I think they'll score it. So this isn't. There's no stats really that I can point to support this, but at 150.5 on Caesars, it's an over Jim. I'll be there. Give me the over.
Yeah, and some pretty big disparity on that line. You mentioned 152.5 if you want the under, 150.5 if you want the over. I'll join you on the over. I think this game's going to be up and down. I think it's going to be exciting. Both teams are going to make shots. Give me the over 150.5.
And then if somehow or some way the game goes to overtime, we've always got that behind us as well. And then we've got something to root for. So I honestly, when we were talking about FAU and Illinois, I had the under sense was tingling, but you never want to bet the under when you're going to be at the game because it is very frustrating to watch in person. So for those two games, we're on Illinois plus 2.5 in the first one, and we will take the over in the second one. But both games that are just tremendous matchups, and we'll set these teams up as they get ready to move to conference play. I think if you looked at these four teams, the team who needs a win the most to me is going to be FAU, just because of the fact that the AAC outside of Memphis, not very strong. So I think if I had to give a hot take of who needs a win the most, it's probably FAU, right?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily to make the tournament, but it's for what seed line they can be on when they get in the dance. A loss here, they might be on a trajectory for more of an 8-9 seed, but they get this win and they ride that confidence into big AAC play. That could go a long ways for them getting on the seed line, getting up a little higher.
The next game, and there's a few more games tonight that I think are pretty compelling. This one is Big Ten play. The first Big Ten game, I believe, is it for both of these teams? It is for both of these teams. Wisconsin, coming off that great victory over Marquette, heads to Michigan State tonight at 7 o'clock. This Michigan State team still has yet to break out, yet to really do anything. They've got those 3 losses. They were competitive against Duke and Arizona, but neither of them go their way. They, of course, lost the season opener to James Madison. They host Wisconsin tonight. Wisconsin coming off that big win over Marquette. They've got that in their back pocket now. They head to the Breslin Center, where Michigan State will be -5 at home in this game. Wisconsin plus 5.5 and over-under in the 131 to 131.5 range, as both teams on the defensive side have been solid so far this year. Obviously, for me, Michigan State's got to start doing something. They've got to pick up one of these victories. Michigan State just can't lose another game, especially at home, against a quality opponent. Any thoughts on Tom Izzo and what this game kind of means for Michigan State?
Yeah, not usually do you talk about a must-win game in early December in college basketball, but this feels like a must-win game for Michigan State just to right the ship. And they've missed some of those big opportunities that you talked about in the non-conference. And again, those aren't really going to hurt them come Selection Sunday. But this is a big game for them. This is one that they need to have on their resume as a W. And it's going to be tough. Wisconsin trending in the right direction, like we talked about. It's going to be a slugfest with that over-under at 131. But definitely one that Michigan State needs to pull out. On the flip side of the coin, a great opportunity for Wisconsin. They get a team that's struggling, that's kind of lost their identity, and they have a chance to go get a great win on the road to open up Big Ten play.
Yeah, and to that point, for Wisconsin, I still believe that come March, and we see it with our friend John Rothstein. March is Izzo's month, and you would expect this Michigan State team, whether they win tonight or not, they're going to have to get better at some point this year. They're going to have to start picking up some marquee victories. Like, they just will. I have a hard time believing that Michigan State just sucks the whole season, but they're still struggling right now, and Wisconsin's playing some of their best basketball that they played in quite some time over these last few games. If they can just pick one off here while they're still hot and Michigan State's down a little bit, Michigan State improves as the year goes on, and this could be another just big feather in the cap for Wisconsin come tournament time. And looking at the stats here, Michigan State just still can't shoot the ball from 3. They're still 332nd in the country in 3-point percentage. They are still shooting way too many. They're 314th, they're not shooting too many. They're not shooting a lot of threes. They're 314th in 3-point attempts. So they've kind of abandoned the 3-point line because it's just not working for them. Surprisingly, I think of the Wisconsin defense as like the core of what they're trying to do. And they are 24th in defensive efficiency, but they're outside the top 200 in most shooting defensive stats. So like a lot of their positive defense is coming from forcing turnovers, where they're 44th, and on the rebounding, where they're 25th in the country in rebounding. So I think that is a little surprising to me that Wisconsin's playing this well without kind of their core defensive pieces working. And then on the other side of the ball, the Michigan State defense has actually been really good. They're 7th in defense. They're 7th in effective field goal percentage, 28th in defending the 3, 16th in defending the 2. Wisconsin not shooting the ball great from 3. So I think this becomes a battle on the interior, just because these teams aren't shooting the ball well from 3. I don't think I have a side. I'd probably lean towards Michigan State, just because I really think they have to win this one, and the -5 isn't anything crazy. But I've already been burned too many times for Michigan State this year, so I think I'm going to sit this one out.
Give me the under in this one. I feel like this is the type of game that goes into the half 28-23. I've just seen it from Wisconsin before. You mentioned Wisconsin, they're defending. Don't overlook their ability to clean the glass. Like, you really only get one look every time up and down the floor against Wisconsin. And then when they get that rebound, they're not looking to push. They walk it up and they get into their stuff. Give me the under 131.5.
A defensive slugfest first game of Big Ten play. That would just be the right way to start the Big Ten year for both of these teams. It's 58-54 game or something along those lines. So top 20 matchup in Ken Palm, 2 teams who should challenge Purdue at the top of the Big Ten. I still think Purdue will win the Big Ten, even though they now have suffered a loss to Northwestern. But both of these teams should be tournament teams. Both of them should be improving as the season, or Michigan State should improve as the season goes along. But Wisconsin with a chance to pick them off here still in early December. The next one, our Villanova team that we've talked about so much, they are headed to Kansas State tonight. Kansas State, I think this is still part of the Big East Big 12 challenge, which continues to roll on. Kansas State coming off of that elite or Sweet 16 run last year. Things have not been great for them. They lost USC to start the year. They've lost to Miami. They've won 3 overtime games so far this year. They beat Providence in overtime. They beat Oral Roberts in overtime, and they beat Northern Alabama in overtime. So back-to-back overtime wins at home against less than stellar opponents. We've talked plenty about Villanova. I'll be intrigued to see what this line is. Yeah, it's Villanova -2. And without even looking at the stats, I'm taking it. I'm taking Villanova -2 because I think this team is a roller coaster. I think that when they're going to play good teams, they're going to play well. I think this is a line that, if you're just following college basketball, you're like, oh, Villanova's, struggling against these teams. Why are they favored on the road at Kansas State? So we'll talk numbers here in a second. But for me, I'm just blind taking Villanova in this game on the fact that when things are going good for them, I'm going to fade them. And when things are going bad for them, I'm going to assume that they bounce back.
Yeah, definitely scared laying points on the road with what we've seen this season. But this Kansas State team, we don't know what they're going to be, but I think it's safe to say they're not going to be what they were last year. They're missing Marquise Noel. They're missing Keontae Johnson. Ballsy play, taking Villanova, laying the points on the road, but I like it. I like trying to never too high, never too low. If the shots fall for Villanova, like we said, they can beat anybody in the country.
And now looking at the numbers, and obviously now I'm using them to back up a side that I've already selected, but there are some things I think that would be positive here for Villanova, going back to what we talked about in the sense of their game is kind of decided at the 3-point line. Kansas State's not shooting threes well. They're also firing a ton of them. So we have 2 teams that are just going to go out and fire threes, and Kansas State is 220th in 3-point shooting. So that big liability that Villanova's had on the defensive end, where they're getting killed on giving up too many threes, I don't think they're going to fall for Kansas State. Kansas State is rebounding really well off those misses. They're 7th in offensive rebound, but that is where Villanova has been solid. Villanova's 31st in defensive rebounding. So they're surrendering a lot of threes, but when they miss, they're doing a good job of gathering those misses. Kansas State is not great on the defensive glass. Villanova's a top 100 rebounding team. Kansas State outside the top 175. Villanova's shooting the free throws well. So there's a lot of good things going for Villanova. I think when they get into competitive games against these good teams, like, they're going to step up and play well. So it is risky taking a team on the road. The atmosphere in Manhattan, Kansas is usually pretty good, if I remember correctly. But again, I'm not justifying this one with stats. This is purely, I am going to be, for the rest of the year, riding the wave with Villanova and doing the opposite of whatever they've been doing lately.
Yeah, I like the strategy.
The next game on the slate, maybe the final one for us to break down. There's a couple of interesting mid-major games. San Diego State is playing at Grand Canyon tonight.
I saw that Grand Canyon was camping out for that one. They had like 700 kids in tents. That's going to be a huge game.
Yeah, let's see what the line is on that just for kicks. Yeah, San Diego State -1.5 at Grand Canyon, who's +2.5. And that's an interesting line in the sense that San Diego State's 26 in KenPom, Grand Canyon 79. But yeah, that atmosphere tonight in Phoenix at Grand Canyon Arena is going to be insane. And I again, anytime we talk about Grand Canyon, Bryce Drew, future coach of the Washington Huskies, look forward to getting him up to Seattle soon enough. Grand Canyon, they lost to South Carolina, but they're 6-1. They're taking care of business against kind of the 150 level KenPom teams that they need to beat. They're going to be favored to win. Yeah, KenPom has them favored to win all but one game in conference this year. This Grand Canyon team, we should expect to see them in March. And if they can pick up a win here, they play San Diego State, and then they play Liberty. There's an outside chance that they could be a bubble team, even if they don't win their conference tournament in the WAC, just because they only have one loss right now. They should win most of their games in conference. So a big chance for Grand Canyon to pick up a win that could be meaningful come March.
Yeah, definitely a huge chance. I think one of those wins, they can move them from the 14 line to the 13 line if they have this one on their resume. So huge opportunity for them. Just Grand Canyon is one of the most fun environments in college basketball. If you've never been to a game there, you have to go. The place is just going to be absolutely rocking tonight. So give me Grand Canyon. Like KenPom, I know it feels crazy to go against KenPom here, but like that home court advantage is so crazy when it gets going in there.
Yeah, no, this has to be one of the biggest home games that Grand Canyon has had. I mean, outside of obviously they have meaningful league games, but yeah, just looking at their schedule the last couple of years, you don't see many top 20, top 30 KenPom teams going to play at Grand Canyon. So hat tip to San Diego State for going to play this game. San Diego State, a team who lost to BYU, who at the time were like, oh, it's kind of a tough loss for them. But now we know BYU, potential top 10 team in the country, a serious threat to make a deep run in March. They've won every game since then. They beat Washington in overtime. They beat Cal in overtime. They beat St. Mary's. So they've taken care of business. They haven't been overly impressive. And so I kind of like that Grand Canyon pick. A huge game for Grand Canyon. Crowd will be behind them in San Diego State. We don't really know what they are yet. We know what they were last year, making it to the national championship, but it's kind of TBD. They do have, is it Jadon Ledee? Is that how you say it?
Jaden Ledee. Yeah, looking like a National Player of the Year candidate.
KenPom has him as the number 3 player in the country right now. So that's always going to help you at the end of the day in college basketball. And you've got a guy of that caliber, especially when you're playing against a team like Grand Canyon, who's a great team. They play well together. They've got good pieces, but they don't have a potential player of the year on the roster for sure. Next up, another of the Big East, Big 12 games. Providence heads to Oklahoma to play in Norman at 7 o'clock. Providence comes into this one at 7-1. Their lone loss coming in that overtime game to Kansas State. They have a win over Wisconsin, which is looking better and better by the week. And then there's Oklahoma, who is undefeated, 7-0. They've beat Iowa. They've beat USC, which those are solid wins. They're not amazing. USC lost to Gonzaga. Gonzaga has now won like 30,000 games in a row against the Pac-12, which is kind of sad for the Pac-12. I also saw Pac-12 is like 1-19 in quad one games so far this year, or something like that. I think Arizona winning at Duke's like the only good win that the Pac-12 has so far. So that's unfortunate for us. But we look at a line here of Oklahoma -4.5, Providence +5.5, over under 141.5 to 142.5. Statistically, when we look at this one, this Oklahoma defense under Porter Moser is looking really nice. 18th in 3-point defense, 18th in 2-point defense, 9th overall in effective field goal percentage. They force turnovers. They're 89th in the country in forcing turnovers. Providence 231st in turnovers on offense. So there is an edge here for sure for Oklahoma on the defensive side, and especially with that ability to force turnovers and defend both the 2 and the 3. I mean, I've watched this team play against USA, and they just do a nice job kind of all around the floor doing what you'd expect from Porter Moser. And then offensively, they've been great too. They're 12th in effective field goal percentage, 2nd in 2-point percentage. They're balanced. They don't shoot a ton of threes, but they shoot enough. They're 143rd in three-point attempts, 167th in assists. So very balanced offensive attack. And then the Providence defense has been really good too. They're fifth in effective field goal percentage, third in two-point defense. So might be a game that comes down to who can knock down a couple of threes with that battle. You've got top 40 defenses or top 10 defenses, top 20 defenses on the interior and some top 40 offenses on the interior. A very compelling matchup of two teams who have been a little bit better, I think, than we've projected for either of them so far this year.
Yeah, give me the under in this one. I think it's going to be a really competitive battle. I definitely see this game being in the 60s, not the 70s. So give me the under 142.5.
Just looking at this Oklahoma team, I really liked what I saw from them against USC when they played. They've got just a variety of guys. Their guards are really good. I think this Oklahoma team is legit. Like I like the pieces they have. We know Porter Moser's a good coach. It hasn't quite gone right for him so far at Oklahoma, but there's no reason why it can't go right for him at Oklahoma. And he started to put together a roster that I think he likes, and obviously the results speak for themselves so far. I'm going to take Oklahoma -4.5 here at home for a lot of those reasons that we've talked about so far about it being tough for teams to go on the road. I know I just went against it with Villanova, but that's a unique case because I'm treating Villanova as kind of a special project this year where we're giving them a different treatment than anyone else in the country. But Oklahoma at home tonight. Crowd will be behind them, a chance to move to 8-0, a chance to pick up another great victory over a Big East opponent. Providence lost to another Big 12 opponent in Kansas State, 73-70 in overtime earlier this year. They, this is more of I think this Oklahoma team's good. I like their defense. I think they have an edge forcing turnovers tonight. I think if you can force some turnovers, get the crowd going, you can force more turnovers because you get in the guy's head. So not a huge line. Give me Oklahoma here -4.5 in this one tonight in Norman. Let's see if there's any other games on the docket. Indiana at Michigan. Michigan has been proven not to be good. As we said after the St. John's game, that was fake news. St. John's also not good. Michigan struggled. Indiana, they've only lost one game to UConn. I think I would have assumed, honestly, looking at this, that Indiana has not been playing very well because I think I've seen a lot of negative things about them. But only one loss and it coming to UConn, not too bad, and a chance for them to pick up a big victory on the road today against Michigan.
Yeah, you saw Mike Woodson say, like, he got asked about their bad three-point shooting. He was like, what if we're the team that makes it to March Madness without good three-point shooting? Have you ever thought about that?
It's a fair point, and they should. I mean, they're 69 in KenPom right now. Their only losses on a neutral floor to UConn. If they play well in conference, and pick up. So they play Michigan, Auburn, Kansas. 3 straight games for Indiana. They maybe only need to win one of those games and then be a solid enough 10-8, or I guess they play 20 games in the Big Ten now. Like a 12-8 team in conference should be enough for Indiana to get in, especially when you add in the name on the front of the jerseys. Always helps on the bubble when you're Indiana. Yeah. So a couple interesting games for them this week or in the coming weeks against those 3 teams. Those 4 games for me are going to be, or the 5 games we talked about for me, the 4 selections. Illinois +2.5, the over at the over gym of UNC, and UConn of 150.5 going the over there. Villanova -2 on the road at Kansas State, and a home game tonight for Oklahoma -4.5. First, one other game that just popped up. We don't have to break it down, but an interesting one. Seton Hall going to Baylor tonight. Seton Hall, not great, but Baylor so far. Of those teams that has avoided any crazy losses so far, Baylor is one of them. So we need to make sure that our Baylor team takes care of business tonight against Seton Hall as well.
Yeah, fully expect them to do so.
What's the line in that one? -11. So they should be able to take care of business there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will see you later tonight. We'll be at MSG. I think the atmosphere should be electric. Anytime UConn plays at MSG, all the UConn fans in New York come out of the woodwork, and they'll be there. Plenty of North Carolina fans in the city as well. And you assume if you're an Illinois or FAU fan, not a bad trip to make around the holidays to come out here to New York and experience the city. So, Hunter, I think you're going to get the full MSG environment tonight.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That is for Factors. We will be back on Friday to break down some of the games that will be taking place over the weekend, as well as just get a kind of 30,000-foot view of how things are going in college basketball. Maybe do some segments, have some fun. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck.